People who voted for Trump listen to all of the things that he said that he was going to do and then say, I don't think anyone voted for that. Why? He said he was going to do that. What is it? What kind of mental gymnastics do these people have to where they heard him say these things? They heard him say these things. And then, I don't know, how are he going to do this? Like the people who rely on immigrant labor, like, oh my God, he is going to deport our labor force. Like, what is it with these people and their cognitive dissonance that makes them believe that this man who said he's going to do all of these things won't do all of these things? And then even if like you believed him enough, you're like, yeah, let's go, America, F Joe Biden, America. And then they voted for him. And now they're like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't do this to me. No, you deserve it worse and first. I want to remind us all before I get into that article that he pledged to get rid of the Department of Education on several occasions. It was written about several times. This article down here from CNN is from September 2020, before the election happened. Trump wants to shut down the Department of Education. He likes uninformed voters. He likes it because these people hear things and then they act like they didn't hear things, and then they're shocked when the things happen because they're the opposite of smart. But back to this article from the Raw Story. Educators and families in areas where Donald Trump's America First seem to resonate the most could be hit with catastrophic cuts. I really hope that they feel it really, really hard, like get it really in there. Tom Gambrel, the superintendent of Bell County, Kentucky schools, joined most of his neighbors and cast his vote for Trump with his students in mind. But he told CNN that he hopes the president-elect doesn't carry through with his plan to cut federal education funding. Why did you vote for him? Why did you vote for him if his plans didn't resonate with you? I don't think anyone in our country wants to cut our school funding. I don't think that anyone voted for that. Just want to highlight, Trump wants to shut down the Department of Education. He pushed this. He pushed this. This is not a secret. Gambrel said the proposed cuts would be catastrophic, forcing teacher layoffs, packing more students into classrooms, and getting less attention for vulnerable students. A CNN analysis found that all 15 of the states that rely most heavily on federal support for public schools in 2022 backed Trump in November, while all but 2 of the 15 that received the fewest federal dollars as a percentage of their overall revenue support Kamala Harris. This is one of these cases where Republican policies are stabbing their base right in the heart and will directly impact their kids, said Will Ragland, vice president of the Center for American Progress. I'm going to repeat that. This is one of these cases where Republican policies are stabbing their base right in the heart and will directly impact their kids. And they deserve it because they voted for it. Trump hasn't shared many details of his proposal, although he has spoken in support of shutting down the Department of Education. And Republicans proposed an 80% cut in 2023 to Title I, which pays teacher salaries in low-income communities, and a 25% cut last year. You notice a trend here? A lot of these proposals are impacting the most vulnerable students, said Weaday James, Senior Director of the Education Policy at the Center for American Progress. This is really just a pattern of making things worse for those who are already at the margins, and that's concerning. The Project 2025 blueprint for Republican governance calls for expanding school choice and turning federal funding, such as Title I and programs that support students with disabilities, into no-strings-attached block grants to states, which experts say would redirect funding away from marginalized communities. If we start putting public money in private schools, they become public schools, Gambrel said. I just don't think that taxpayer money should be distributed to private schools. You, Gambrel, you should have known better, but This is what you voted for. So you and other people, other parents of students in marginalized communities, other parents of students in low income communities, if you voted for Trump, this is what you voted for. You voted to reduce teacher salaries. You voted to close schools. This is what you voted for, and you need to sit in it. You pooped in your bed. You're going to sit in it. You're going to squish it. You're going to smell it, and then you're going to deal with it. You're going to have to clean this up yourself. Join the conversation now. And yeah, I'm here for the find out season. I'm going to rub it in their faces when they get everything that they voted for. I'm going to be here to report on all of these dumb McGrums. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think about this one. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Many of these opposite of smart MAGA voters live in these states that have these calamitous storms coming through. They already don't believe that climate change is impacting the weather and harming their lands and their homes and all of that kind of stuff. But they voted for a man that has vowed to strip funding to help them rebuild or reinforce their homes. Now they're on par with these other people that hopefully he doesn't take away my money. I thought he was going to hurt those people. They really thought that everything that he said he was going to do would harm those people, but their faces are being eaten. And I hope that the faces of the people that he voted for him, I hope that they're snatched away first. I know all of us are about to feel this, but I want MAGA voters to feel it first and worst. Now, this article is from ProPublica. They've been putting out some amazing articles. It says, this storm-battered town voted for Trump. He has vowed to overturn the law that could fix its homes. Let's get into it. Donald Trump has said he will overturn a law that helps communities better weather the effects of climate change. If he follows through, he'll be reversing an initiative that has disproportionately benefited areas that make up his base. All right, let's get into it. It says Cynthia Roberts could be forgiven for feeling that the banner that was aimed at her, it's black on white lettering, F Biden and F you for voting for him, hung from the wooden house right across the street from her. Hostility toward the outgoing Democratic president is no surprise in Sulfur, Louisiana, a red town in a red state in a country that has handed the White House and Congress to Republicans. Yet the message felt like a poke in the eye at a time where Robertson was seeking funding through Biden's signature climate law so her nonprofit organization could repair and retrofit hurricane-battered houses in the area, including her neighbors. Not even a fraying tarp, a tar patch, or a piece of corrugated metal tacked on the roof could keep the rain from pouring inside. Donald Trump has vowed to overturn the law that would provide funding, the Inflation Reduction Act, which he has referred to as the New Green Scam. If he follows through once he assumes office, Trump would be rolling back a law that has disproportionately benefited red areas like Sulfur that make up his base. Though not a single Republican legislator voted for the law, an outsized portion of its historic $1 trillion in climate and energy provisions has benefited red congressional districts and states that voted for Trump. According to a report by E2, a group tracking the effects of the law, red districts had the biggest growth in green jobs, the report said. Red states, including Nevada, Wyoming, Kentucky, and Georgia, have seen the biggest jumps in clean energy investments, according to an August report from the Clean Investment Monitor, which tracks public and private investments in climate technology. Texas has received $69 billion in clean investments since the law passed, second only to California. Not all of the money has been spent yet, and several provisions are vulnerable to rollbacks, among them tax credits for home energy improvements and certain alternative fueling sites. Billions hang in the balance, including, to Robertson's chagrin, more than $100 million for disadvantaged communities like Sulfur to combat pollution and better weather the effects of climate change. An ordained elder in the Presbyterian Church, Robertson, 66, wears her wavy white hair short, cusses freely, and greets by name the homeless of Sulfur, a city of some 20,000 people. Miss Cindy, as she's known in her neighborhood, named her nonprofit organization MICA 6 and 8 mission after after an Old Testament verse about caring for the poor. Last summer, she and other community leaders worked around the clock to submit the grant proposal 7 weeks in advance of a fall deadline. Among her partners is Build Change, which specializes in creating housing that can withstand natural disasters in the developing world. The organizations have sought more than $19 million for their local improvement plan, which includes shoring up roofs, remediating mold and mildew, providing homes with solar-powered air conditioning, and building a community center where residents can find refuge during emergencies. But in mid-December, an email from the EPA explained it didn't have enough time to make the decision on the application before the inauguration. It will be up to the Trump EPA to determine whether Sulfur and some 2,000 other communities get the grants they apply for. Now, Robertson said all she can do is pray that Republicans will see that the investment is in everyone's best interest, including their own. As her small staff gathered for a weekly meeting in December, she bowed her head. "Dear Lord," she said, "if it's your will, may we get this damn grant, please." A storm-battered community. Sulfur is near the beating heart of the extremely profitable petrochemical industry. Huge multinational corporations, including Westlake Chemicals, Citgo Petroleum, Lyndon Basil, and ConocoPhillips, have plants just a few miles from Robertson's home and the office of her environmental nonprofit. But Porsche Town, the crisscross of streets lined with low-slung homes in the north side of Sulfur, where she lives, seems to have gained little for its proximity to these engines of wealth. Named for a widow who moved to the area with her 8 children in the early 1900s, the Porsche Town remains a place of struggle. Median annual income is around $40,000, and life expectancy is 69, 9 years short of the national average. Climate change has added another layer of challenge. The hurricane risk in Calcasieu, the parish where it's located, is in the top 3% in the country, according to FEMA, which rates the expected annual loss from the storms in the area as high and the resiliency as low. With its shore on the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana has always been vulnerable to storms, but the threat has unquestionably worsened in recent years. Climate change has raised temperatures, causing the air and water to warm. Storms intensify as they travel across the warmed ocean, pulling in more water vapor and heat, which makes hurricanes stronger and more intense. When Hurricane Laura hit in August 2020, its eye passing directly over Sulfur, it was the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the state's history, killing at least 30 people and knocking out power in Porsche Town for weeks. Many residents couldn't afford generators or the fuel to run them and went without air conditioners and refrigerators, even as the temperatures soared to above 90 degrees. Shortly after the power was restored, it was knocked out again by Hurricane Delta, which was followed by a deep freeze caused by Winter Storm Uri. The next year, Hurricane Ida tied Laura's record for the strongest winds measured in Louisiana. The storms have been getting closer and closer together and more active, said Jessica McGee, who lives with her adult son in a small cream-colored house a few blocks from Robertson in Porsche Town. The McGees haven't had gas since Hurricane Laura and have used electric space heaters and cooked their meals in a microwave oven for the past 3 years. Boards nailed over their windows before the 2020 storms remain there. McGee, who lives on disability benefits, says she's neither the strength nor the money to repair the hurricane damage. "It's my water, it's the pipes, it's the floor. The next one, our roof is going to be gone." If Robertson's nonprofit is awarded the grant it is seeking, McGee's house may also benefit. She brightens at the thought that the government funding could bring her home back from the brink of inhabitability, but remains skeptical of politics. "I don't vote. It's not for me. I don't vote. It's not for me." But she will gladly take those benefits of a voter, voting to keep some funding for her community. A political lightning rod. The sprawling Inflation Reduction Act had many goals, including funding the Internal Revenue Service and lowering the healthcare costs. but its main aim was to reduce emissions of the greenhouse gases that drive climate change through tax credits, customer incentives, and grants. Despite its purpose, its authors conspicuously omitted the word climate from its name in an effort to get the bipartisan support for it. The benefits of the law were widely spurring clean energy projects in almost 40% of the country's congressional districts. 19 of the 20 that got the most funding were led by Republicans. I circled that because it's obviously quite important to see that part. In August, as he was standing on a corn and bean farm next to the deputy administrator of the Biden EPA, Jim Pillen, enthused about his state's grants. Pillen, the Republican governor of Nebraska, called the agency's $307 million IRA grant a once-in-a-lifetime extraordinary opportunity. In Pocatello, Idaho, a town in a red county that is still recovering from the 2012 Charlotte fire, folks are pretty excited about the planned Greenway path that will decrease wildfire risk and allow residents to bike by the river, Hannah Sanger, the city's science and environment administrator, told me. And in Alaska, where Trump also won handily, the recipients of a grant of more than $47 million to electrify 2 ports describe themselves as ecstatic about the money. So they're happy about the money that they get through the Democratic administration and funding, but they still voted for Trump, who has said that he is about to take away all this money. Someone will have to make this make sense. Still, the law remains a political lightning rod. Republicans in Congress have tried to repeal parts of it dozens of times, and Trump railed against it on the campaign trail. My plan will terminate the Green New Deal, Trump told a group assembled at the Economic Club of New York in September. It actually sets us back as opposed to moves us forward, and I will rescind all unspent funds under the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act. Why he wants to rescind money that actually helps Republican areas is beyond me, and why people in Republican areas voted for this man who said this is beyond me as well, because like I said before, it literally makes no sense. These people have no sense. Clay Higgins, the Republican who represents Sulfur in Congress, voted against the IRA, which he attacked as a monstrosity of a bill that wastes hundreds of billions of dollars on Green New Deal subsidies. Higgins, who receives campaign funds from the oil and gas industry, notes on his website that fossil fuels are the lifeblood of our modern society. He did not respond to questions about Robertson's hope to use the IRA money to shore up the houses in his district. In November, Republicans on the House Energy and Commerce Committee issued a report that attacked the EPA's IRA grants as a green group giveaway and characterized some of the recipients as extremist organizations. The lawmakers criticized funding groups that educate the public about climate change or environmental activist organizations that work to influence public and elected officials to adopt their often extreme views, such as completely eliminating the use of fossil fuels. Despite the fiery rhetoric, a full repeal of the law seems unlikely, in part because it will require a majority of the House and Senate to agree on it. In August, 18 House Republicans wrote to Speaker Mike Johnson, urging him to preserve the IRA's energy tax credits, which are already funding projects, and it will be extremely difficult for the new administration to claw back grant money that has already been awarded. Even if he fails to get the congressional support necessary to repeal the law, Trump could reverse the executive order that grants the authority to implement it. He could also cut short its longer-term provisions, some of which were supposed to extend through 2029 and beyond. He can interfere with the funding that now flows through more than 12 federal agencies. And he could put a halt to the 24 proposed rules that would carry out the law's goals, according to the Brookings Institution. Congress could also severely undermine the law by targeting the rules that have been issued since August 1st and can thus be overturned through the Congressional Review Act. A looming decision. Soon after the IRA was signed into law in 2022, Robertson began looking for ways it could benefit the Porsche town. Her charity had already been distributing food, clothing, and hurricane buckets filled with mosquito repellent, canned ham, batteries, and other supplies to locals when it and several other organizations together received $407,000 in IRA funds in 2023. The grant pays for the groups to distribute evidence based materials about pollution, climate change, and public health, according to its application. But it also paid for 2 air monitors, which regularly document dangerously elevated levels of particulate matter in the air, pollution that is associated with premature death and breathing problems. The IRA's community change grants, designed to provide approximately $2 billion for climate related projects in disadvantaged communities, offered more direct help. Robertson despaired on the December day when she learned that the Trump administration, not Biden's, would be deciding whether Porsche Town will get the grant. This community needs this so badly, she said through tears. Damn it. Just that morning, she had visited with Janet Broussard, 82, who lives by herself a few blocks away. The two had stood outside Broussard's trailer, imagining how the grant might improve it. Broussard's roof had come off more than 4 years ago during Hurricane Delta. It was replaced, but within 2 years, the new one was damaged by a tornado. She had no insurance that would pay to repair the damage and catches the rain in a bucket that she empties after storms. But Robertson had said that if the grant came through, Micah's 6-8 mission would be able to help fix the roof. We'll also be able to take the siding off, insulate, put new siding on, take the windows out, put in double pane insulating windows, Robertson had said. Zeeland Hoover, a senior advisor to the EPA administrator who oversaw the IRA grant, said the agency made a Herculean effort and managed to distribute more than 95% of the money. But the agency officials didn't have time to give the proposals that were submitted in the final weeks of the application period the careful reads they deserved, he said. So they decided to reserve some funds so the next administration can finish the process. We are going to give those 2,000 applicants who came in at the very end, some hope and chance of being selected, said Hoover, who pointed out that under any administration, the agency's mission is to protect human health and the environment. What it decides will matter to Tony Rodriguez, who hung the F. Biden banner outside his home in the fall. A slight man with a graying beard who goes by Burnout, Rodriguez said he hung the banner to raise awareness about all the bad stuff Biden did. He had heard on the news, he can't remember the exact source, that the president was to blame for children being trafficked, repeating a false conspiracy theory, and had sold out our country. Still, he said he would be grateful if Miss Cindy would use some of the money she is hoping to get from the law championed by the outgoing president to stop the rain from coming into his bedroom. At least then he'd have done something good, he said. Despite the fact that this is the administration that provided all of these grant funds for these states impacted by climate change, even though they had to take the word climate out because so many of these people deny climate change and politicize it. This is something that is happening, but even in states that are impacted by it firsthand, that are seeing the storms come faster and harder, they're denying that climate change is real. And I just cannot understand how these people are still able to live in this type of denial, even as it's impacting their lives and their day-to-day. I don't understand. But like I said, these people are literally the least educated. They are opposite of smart, and they continue to vote against their own interests. And some of these people didn't vote. Some of these people voted against their interests. But all in all, I hope that they continue to get it worse and first. And I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I hope whichever deity hears prayers, hears that one from me. All right, y'all, join the conversation. Let me know what you think about all of this. Don't forget to like, comment.